I'm in the big leagues, told him don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog.
All right, there you go. Yo, welcome back to another episode of Said Connects, Cannabis Entrepreneurial Dialogues. This is your host, Danny. If you're interested in learning more about the cannabis space through the eyes of brands of color, people of color, minorities in the space, make sure to tune into our episodes every Monday. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Said Connects and follow us on Instagram at CED_connects. I'm excited about today. We're in the beautiful city of Long Beach, and we're sipping on a few drinks here. We got marijuana. Shout out to them for sponsoring today's episode with a few drinks here. And today we have the second CEO of 40 Ton. If you guys seen last few weeks, we've had Anthony over here on the episode. But today we have the pleasure of having Anthony's wife, Loriel. And we have a ton of questions that we have to ask about her journey within the brand, within the experiences that she had to overcome throughout Anthony's time, incarcerated, the time that she had to with the children, having to work. And so I'm excited to get this story out to you guys. And so without any further ado, I got Loriel here. What's up, Loriel? How are you today?
Hey, Danny. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Nice. I'm excited to have you guys. We've been prepping for your brand and for these episodes to come out. And so I'm thankful and grateful to have you guys on our show and our platform to be able to tell your story.
Yeah, it is quite sensational, but I tell you, it is absolutely my life and 100% truth.
Yes. And so we like to start off by learning a little more about yourself, your upbringing. What was your upbringing like? And what was the messaging behind cannabis in your household as you were growing up?
Wow. Okay. So, my upbringing, very humble, I want to say,
Okay.
Because I was raised by my grandmother and great-grandmother. My mother was part of that crack pandemic in the 80s that hit LA tough. And so, I'm thankful to God that he put these strong women in my life to help raise me into the strong person that I am today. As far as cannabis, weed, pot, that introduction was pretty early on, I'd want to say. My older brother, he was in a gang, and it was around. I saw it. I never used it. He would, tell me, no, stay away from this. So I was probably about 15 or 16. So I knew about it. I never consumed it, though, until much later.
All right.
I was probably 18 when I first consumed. But yeah, it's kind of been in my life throughout, so.
Yeah. And so what area was it in California that you grew up in?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you comfortable sharing what area?
Yeah. So it was in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah. So Normandy and Melrose area
Got
is
you.
where we grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Normandy and Melrose.
Yeah. I went to Fairfax High School, so that whole area over there.
Okay, cool. And so that sets the stage for your you mentioned your brother was involved, through gangs and whatnot. Talk to me about how the relationship with Anthony and Corvain came to play with your story.
Yes. Okay, Danny. So, like I said, my older brother was in gangs. He did get in trouble. He caught a case. It was a horrible sentence that he was given at a very young age. He was sentenced at 17 years old. He did about 8 years on that term. And so they were very protective. I'm the only sister between two brothers. And so they were
Where do you fall on the line?
in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, so my older brother, the one who was in gang, and then myself, and then I have a younger brother. And so they were very protective. But when my older brother did go to jail to serve his sentence, that's when I guess discovered boys.
Okay. Because you said 15, 16?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Right. So I'm in high school. I think it was my senior year. Yeah. And I was still into books and school, and I had a job. So I was super responsible.
Okay.
Right?
Where were you working?
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Denny's. I was working at Denny's, y'all.
Nice.
Still around today. So they were doing something back then, and they continue to do it. So, I was working at Denny's, still in high school. And here it comes. I needed to get a prom date, but I wasn't like actively dating or looking to date.
Okay.
And I had this infatuation for this singer. I don't know if you remember him or not. His name was John B.
Yeah.
He had a couple of hits with Tupac and right. So he's still pretty relevant today.
John B.
Yes, you remember him. So I had, posters on my wall for John B. I think most teenage girls back then had posters on their walls.
I see where this is going.
Okay, you see, Danny. And so I needed a date, and my younger brother was playing basketball at the park. At that time, there were no cell phones. It was no beepers. It was like, hey, a group of guys would agree to meet on Sunday at 4:00 at the park.
Right.
Be there, be square, whatever you want to call it, right? So it was one of those things. Anthony was playing basketball with my younger brother. They had been friends. Well, my younger brother needed a ride home. Anthony was driving, and he offered to take him home. And so then Anthony comes in, because I guess they were going to go out afterwards, so they wanted to change clothes. Anthony came in, and honestly, like when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, he looks like John B. Wow, like shit.
Yeah.
And but I played it cool. Right. I just went back in my room like nothing, like hi, whatever. And then he decided to come and follow me into my room. And at the time, I know, very forward, huh? And so I had my bed, and also had like a recliner. And he came and he plopped on my recliner and was like, hey, what's up, girl? And I was like, hello, like, what are you doing in here? Like, I didn't invite you in here.
Yeah.
Like, he was very forward back then, and he still is today, as you chatted with him. And so from there, I think I ended up asking my brother, oh, does he have a girlfriend or whatever? And he was like, no, I don't think so. It's like, why would he want? I was like, I just needed him for prom. Right. And then I was like, my brother said, oh, okay, I'll ask him. I don't think he'll mind. And so I asked him, and he's like, yeah, your brother mentioned that to me. So I said, do you want to go to prom with me? And he said, oh, yeah. We got the dates together. And I was like, okay, I'll see you there at the prom. Here's the address. And then I think he called me back like a couple days later, and he was like, I was thinking, yeah, I want to go to prom with you, but we don't really know each other. Like, don't you think we should get to know each other before going to prom and having to sit around people? And then I said, no, I don't think so. No, we don't need to do any of that. You're just for prom, and that's it. Yeah.
You got one job.
Right. But he convinced me otherwise, that we would be very awkward if we didn't at least have, I think he asked me for coffee. And at
16.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this time we were 17.
17.
Yeah. But and for coffee. And so coffee turns into a full-on date, and it was movies, and then dinner, and then everything,
That's where it begins.
Yeah.
Okay. What now? I feel like Anthony would be the one wearing like the white tux. Is that the case? Did he wear the white tux to prom?
No, my colors were like champagne color. So he had like that on, black tux, white shirt, and then the champagne like compliments.
Got it.
My dress was like the champagne color.
Okay.
Which I still have the photos to this day, 1998.
You need to shoot that to us.
Oh my God.
For the edits.
Oh, I will. It's on a keychain, but I don't want to break it, because like that's the only one I have.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've kept it all this time.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, how long have you guys then been together?
Okay. We are married 22 years.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
22 years.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, 3 children.
So I need to know the secret. We all need to know the secrets of living a sustainable and long sustainable marriage. What would you say be like top of the list for you?
Oh boy. I would say having someone really just be your friend, right? Because if they're your friend, regardless of if you stay together, you break up, like if you're friends, you still have that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's helpful throughout any relationship, and especially a marriage. And communication, for sure.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a lot, but enough, right? You don't have to tell every move you make, every breath you take.
Okay, sure.
But an overall communication. I mean, obviously you have the respect and the love, but
Sure.
I think it goes like way beyond that. Like,
So recently, my partner and I, we've been talking a lot, and we have our issues, right? Like
Yeah, of
everyone. And like you said, communication is important. What you think?
it's good. Sorry to.
It is, right?
Ooh,
It is good, right?
good. Guava.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah, shout out to you guys.
Delicious,
It is
yeah.
good. But she is very, I'm sure you've heard of the love languages, the 5 love languages.
Oh, yeah.
So she's very acts of service is her style of receiving love.
Okay.
One day she was like, we need to watch this. And I was like, watch what? And she was like, there's this show. And I was like, okay. And it was called Fair Play.
Oh.
And it's on the division of labor in the household and how these mundane like jobs or like things that go on in the house, like cleaning the house or picking up after the children or just doing the little things, are put on to women because they're like, that's just historically like what it's been, right? And I forgot what they said. It was like these meaningless jobs that are normally given to women.
Yeah.
And that creates problems within the household because of assumptions and all that. And so it was like getting men to take on these roles in the household to streamline, I guess, make things better. I don't know. It was a good show. I learned a lot from it. I was like, okay, I could see that, or I could change things.
Yeah, I think we all are work in progresses, right? And I know what you're talking about, these domestic duties, right? And then we're not given the proper credit as though if we were to go and, work an 8-hour workday outside of the home,
Right.
But I also saw, I think it was an article about how much it really cost that person to do said things on this checklist of household duties.
Yeah.
And it is more equivalent than working this 8 hours.
It is. It is. And like, and I'm guilty of it. Like I would maybe work a 8 to 10 hour shift, come home and just be like, dude, I'm tired. And her response like, what the fuck do you think I was doing at home, right? And then it wasn't until like I stayed home one day and I'm like, fuck, this is work.
Yeah,
like there's a lot. Yeah, like and even in that episode, like there was an example that they gave of the wife went out and the husband was like, what do I do with the kid? And she's like, feed him, do this. Where's the food at? It's just little situations like that was brought up. It just kind of, was relatable. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I can make this work. Or I could compromise to like make things work out. So
yeah. So yes, compromise for sure. You must pick and choose your battles.
That too.
When it comes, not everything has to be this war,
Yeah.
And you don't always have to speak on every little thing that's in your head that you feel you should communicate. That's that overly communication that I'm speaking about.
Right.
It can just be like, you know what, this one is not worth it. Like, I'm gonna just let this shit go. You know what I mean? So finding that balance, I think, is also important in your relationship.
And I think just knowing the story, listening to Anthony's story over the last few episodes, it feels like there's a lot of things that feels like you let go of a lot in terms of like of those battles that you chose, right? So I really want to learn more about the family dynamic before and then after incarceration the first time.
Oh shit, we got to take it way back because he's gone more than once,
Right.
more than twice.
Right.
Wait for it, more than 3 times.
Right. Yeah, and from, we learned, for those that haven't seen it, make sure to go back and watch. But we, listening to his story, we know that he was incarcerated for just things that may or may not have happened under his watch. And so he also expressed that there was points where there was misleading communication to you and the family, and so that led to incarceration that you just weren't privy to in the moment.
Yeah.
So share with me that experience.
Oh boy. Okay. How I felt when that happened?
Yeah.
Boy, let's see. I was so young. At this point, I think I'm like 21 or so. Yeah. And so
you had a baby?
We had our son, and he was like a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And he went away. You know what? I forgot what the charge was, but I guess it's sort of irrelevant. But he did his time. It left me to hold the family together, even though it was just one child. It's a lot of pressure to provide for everybody.
Yeah.
In the household on my own, rotating daycare and hours of work and overtime and calling on grandparents and cousins and aunts to like help me, make it all work and make sense of it. And then you also add phone calls that can come at any given time, right? So at the time, I think I probably worked at a call center or something, and you see across your phone like the jail, and it's him calling, and you have to now figure out how I'm going to put this call on hold, right? So
your work call.
My work call on hold, so that I can answer this call, because they're timed calls, and you don't know the next time he'll be able to call, right? And maybe it's something super important. Maybe it's something you need to speak with the lawyer about, whatever this is, right? You have to dive and get that call, right? So those types of things I had to deal with, and putting money on someone's commissary books, it's a whole process for that. It costs me money to put money on the books to help support him, right? So nothing is free when your significant other or family member is incarcerated. Like, your phone calls cost double, triple the amount. Correspondences through letters and snail mail at that time, back then, it's a little bit more sophisticated, dare I say that, for communication in the feds now, because you have email. So
so they can receive emails
now in the feds. So I'm talking like way back when. Right? So
I didn't know that.
That's a not so fun fact, but yes, it makes it a little bit easier. I guess burden on the jails for having to have personnel open up every letter and read it and do whatever they do with it before it gets to the person. And maybe that's like, 2 weeks old after this letter has been processed, right? So it's a little bit helpful for them to be able to have email now, but back then there was not. It was just snail mail. And then you take in visitations, right? And I remember at one point, he was at like a facility they were in like the South, so it was very racist in jail, right? Anthony and I are a mixed couple and interracial couple, and there was a time where I could not take the kids to visit him, and I had to call in his mother to come and take them to visit. Because
what were your initial thoughts on that? Like, if you remember?
I thought, you're joking, right? Like, we've evolved in America where that shouldn't be a factor. We're like a huge melting pot. Like, my brother that I spoke about earlier, my older brother, he has his wife is Hispanic. They've got 5 children. So, right, like.
Yeah.
I've thought, no way, that couldn't be true, but it was very much so true. You know, I think at the time Esteli must have been like part of a nation, and they didn't tolerate that at all. But if the kids were going to come, they would be safe. I was assured that. But again, I was still scared.
Sure.
But it's things like that. So a lot of hurdles to jump through when your loved one is behind bars and you're here, you know, trying to make sense of it all. So.
Yeah, and so you touched on like having to maneuver and like always be like on edge, essentially, is what it sounds like. You're always on edge. What were some of the ways that you were able to like maybe de-stress or cope with these heavy days that you were experiencing for those years that he was away the first and second time around?
Yeah, weighing heavily on my family. So, excuse me, my grandmother and great grandmother, rest in peace now, but they were like my complete backbone. Like, if they saw me getting down or they saw me like, okay, something's not right, they'd come over, take the kids, tell me to go out, you know, or take me out, you know, or say, hey, you should just, you know, go with your friends, or dragging me to church, you know, having a strong faith that God isn't going to let me crumble and fall. These are challenges that I needed to go through for whatever reason. I don't know why at that time that I had to be subjected to that, but never did I question God's purpose that he had for me. I just knew whatever he was going to give me, I could withstand it. Like, I was strong enough to do this. And then even my friends today are like, oh my God, I can't even believe you went through that shit. Like, I had no idea. Like, hey, we were out in Vegas and like, you didn't even tell me like he was in jail and like whatever. And like, oh, I probably didn't. But yeah.
Is there a reason, or can you think of a reason why you even just decided to stick with Anthony during that time of like, fool fucked up on me, like on the family, like why should I even work towards this?
Yeah, shit, I get that asked a lot. By all types of people, you know, like, what? Like, you're crazy. There's no way you should have did that. Like, you could have one kid done, you could have did this. I think it all boils down to me coming from a broken home. Like, I'm not raised by my mother or my father or any variation. I'm raised by a grandmother and great grandmother. And I did not want that for my children.
That makes sense.
You know, it was a selfless act that I did. Much harder to stay and fight for your marriage. Oh, it's easy. Throw your hands up. Oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like, psh, right? And nobody would fault me. They'd be giving me double high fives, right?
Right.
But I was determined not to have my children have to endure what I did growing up as a child.
What was the communication then to your children about Anthony's absence?
Yeah. Okay. At first, you play this game with yourself, and I'm sure a lot of women who are in my shoes have done this game too. Like, you know, your husband, your significant other partner does something, the law catches up with him, and you have these children that you have to explain. Where's daddy? When is he coming home? And so what I did is I played that he's at work game, right?
Okay.
And then it became the overnight work, and they're kids, and so, you know, their attention span isn't that long either, so you can kind of get away with it, right? And then here comes a phone call, so then you can at least get the phone call, and they can at least hear daddy's voice, and oh, good night, and happy birthday, and I'm sorry, and I'll make it up to you, and those things, right?
Yeah.
But as the first time I got through that, told the kids that it was fine.
Sure.
Second time, they got a little bit older. They were getting a little more hip. They were like, okay, wait a minute. What the fuck is this, right? And I eventually just said, you know what, Loriel, wake up. Like, these are your children. This is their reality, too. Like, let's not cloud it anymore. So I set them down and I told them, Dad did something naughty, right? And he's going to have to go and be at a place, which is called jail, and we can go and visit him, but he's not going to be coming home for a while. He never gave a time frame because things could change,
sure.
right? And I don't want to set them up for this ultimate failure if it didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So I told them, and surprisingly, they took it well. And they just never really asked any more until they got older. Right?
Got it.
Yeah.
And when that decision to tell the kids the truth, what kind of rift did that cause between you and Anthony?
He was very upset. He didn't want them to know. It was embarrassing for him.
For him,
right?
yeah.
Humiliating for him. He's supposed to be dad that's like can never be, destroyed, right? Can never be tarnished in his child's eyes. But it was a way that I needed to process everything, and so did they. And it was about us at that time, right?
Yeah.
Like I needed him to understand, take yourself out of your own head, like this is for them, they need to know what's up.
Yeah. Did you ever put them maybe through therapy or maybe yourself for like that time of your life?
No, I never chose to put the children through therapy. I knew that this time would pass, and I didn't want them to say, hey, I went to therapy because this happened. And then now they're holding on to this negative energy, this negative space thought of like, I went to therapy, like, and then maybe it's going to happen again. And then they have this fear. I was just like, this is something that's happened. We got to get through this.
Yeah.
But for me, I definitely did go to therapy because I was holding on to all these baggages from my, teenage years and even beyond that. And like, how can I be the best version of myself to the children? Because now I'm not just mom, I'm dad, I'm brother, sister, I'm like everything to them. I'm doctor, lawyer, I'm like, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I have no one else to really fall back on when it's our day-to-day stuff. So I had to be able to articulate and process how I was going to raise them. And at the time, it's 2 boys, right?
Yeah.
So then dad's gone and I have to be it all.
Dang, 2 boys too.
Boys.
That's wild. And so we're going through life here, and you're making things work. When did the decision to move to Vegas happen, and why did that happen?
Okay, I believe we were living in LA or somewhere about LA area, and the cost of living was just constantly rising. Again, I'm by myself, no financial support from anybody. And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who had recently moved out to Vegas, and she's like, she lived in Marina Del Rey, which obviously is cost way more than LA.
Yeah.
And she says, we moved, we got a house, you can rent something fairly inexpensive, and it'll be nice and safe. And I think this will be a good opportunity for you guys. And maybe you need a place to start over, right? Because all this happened in the LA area, right?
Sure.
Anthony's arrest and friends and everything. So I looked into it. I actually started applying for jobs there in Las Vegas. And so
what was one of the first jobs that came on?
Yeah, and I actually got it too. I was I was in the hospitality industry at the Venetian.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, and so I actually met a guy there that worked in the gym.
Okay.
And we are still cool to this day. And he's actually like the yogi master of the world and Lululemon ambassador and Nike ambassador. And he trains all these pro athletes. So like, it's, it was wild. So I got that job there. And then
how'd you like working at the casino? It's a different world, right?
It's a different world. It's living in Las Vegas, 24-hour city, but you learn like your life is outside of the strip. It's not just the strip because that's just tourist attraction and that's where everybody goes.
Right.
But when you live there, you avoid the strip at all costs. So it's like you go to work, do your thing, and leave. Like, and you don't come back until it's time. Right.
Yeah.
So I loved it that it was a 24-hour city. I was still a young mom. I still wanted to go out, let my hair down. Right. And so I was able to do that. And then there's also 24-hour daycare for the children, because if you're working in the casino, say you're a dealer.
Yeah.
You know, and
you're working the graveyard shift.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I used to work at a casino before, like, maybe 8, not even. Faith is 14 now. So about 14 years ago, maybe somewhere around there, I used to work at the Hustler Casino in Gardena.
Oh, yeah.
On Redondo and Vermont.
Yeah.
And I was a cashier. Well, first I was I worked in the count room.
Oh.
And so we were like in a small little room, and we had the boxes from the tables, and we had to sort the chips to count the chips that was collected throughout the night. And every day we would wear a jumpsuit. We were in like a little 10 by 10 room with cameras in every angle. And it was one of the wildest like jobs because of all the security that was attached to that job. Like, for example, if we had these big tables and like I said, we were sorting the chips. Every chip was a different color. And if a chip happened to fall on the floor,
what would you do?
We would have to yell out, "Chip on the floor." And then someone else in the room needed to pick the chip up for me. I wasn't allowed to do it because of, they're thinking I'm going to steal shit, right? And there was always there was like 3 people in the room, 4 tops. If someone needed to go to the bathroom, we needed to call security, let security know that, hey, Danny's going to the bathroom, and then we have to clear the table. So if everyone has their chips, we need to wait till they finish, put it away. Then security will then allow us to open the door. We go handle our business, and then when we come back, we knock. We got to call security. The whole situation. Say it's only 3 of us. 2 people can't be left in the room by themselves. So if it was only 3 of us that day because the other person called out and one of us needed to go to the bathroom, those 2 people needed to step outside while the person went to the bathroom and wait for us to come back. And it was just a lot.
A lot of protocols.
A lot.
Because, you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Don't have bubble guts, Danny. If you were doing that job, you were getting mad.
It was the worst. You're right. It was the worst. And then from there, I went on to cashier, and same. Had to
in the front of the camera.
Do the camera, do this. Yep. And for a good while, I remember going to Arouse or whatever, pay cash, and I would always do this to them, and they're looking at me like, never mind that.
Yes. These habits that you picked up, you'll never forget.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. But so you were working in the casino world. Anthony then gets out. What was that like in this new environment?
Well, everything had changed for me. I was no longer in LA. I'm in Las Vegas living with the children, and he has to parole to LA, someone in the LA area. But at this point, all his family had already moved out of the LA area. Well, Anthony's the only child, so for his mother. They had moved away, so there was no one. The closest person was my grandma, who was living in an assisted living, like a senior citizen complex, right? And so she volunteered to have him come and parole at her house.
Okay.
Yeah, we were thrilled because at least it was somebody. Because if not, I don't know where he would have went. It was good though because they got to have this bond that they both needed. I think she needed to see where he was going to go with his life, just as a doting grandmother and her granddaughter, what's going to happen with him next. I hope he does right this time, So they were able to bond. And so he went there, and then eventually he finished his probation requirements.
Yeah.
And then we asked for a transfer to Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah, so he transferred there, and then we both were working. Oh God, where did he work at? A pool company, I think he did. I think he cleaned pools.
Oh, really? We didn't get that part of the story.
Yeah, I think
What's
he
up with
did.
that?
Oh my God, yeah, I think he did.
Okay, so
Yeah.
pool company. Okay, and things are starting to look in like things are headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Sounds like you have a stable job, a
Yeah.
home. Anthony is starting with the nonprofit organization, and things are moving, grooving in everything, and then
Yeah.
bam.
Bam. Yeah. So it was like a typical day. The nonprofit was jumping. We were, doing all sorts of camps for the children, Jump for Joy Foundation in Las Vegas, partner with some great people, NBA, Kohl's Care, Target, right? And we were just driving out of our community one day, and then I see all these cars, I now know what they are, unmarked cars, just kind of swarm around the general area that we were driving through, and I thought, oh, somebody did something wrong. Like,
Right,
what's
yeah.
going on? Like, there's no way. Like, wow, let me just stop. And
Yeah.
and so next thing I know, they come to my car, and it's get out.
Are you by yourself?
No, Anthony and
Okay,
I were together.
got you.
Yeah, and they tell us to get out. We're on the ground, and they're just yelling and saying, you know what we're here for. You know why we're here. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, no, this time around, Danny, I was like, what are you doing? When are you doing? How are you doing it? I was like, we're not going to go through this jail thing again. Like,
Yeah.
So I knew it wasn't that, right? But don't you know, this was somebody else from his past that had gotten caught and ended up snitching on everybody that he ever knew throughout his entire life. I refuse to say that person's name, but he just destroyed the entire friendship and families and everything by him doing this. So this is where the conspiracy started